Big Zay.
Morning, Brad.
Morning, boys. What's going on?
Well, you're on it. You're on the big story. The Bears are they're just a juggernaut. I don't know how else to say it. They don't need a linebacking core. They don't need all their secondary pieces. They can somehow manhandle Pittsburgh with a backup quarterback. Let's get that straight. But nonetheless, win yet another football game. 8-3 on the year, inching ever closer to the playoff picture in the NFL, buddy.
Yeah, after the fumble in the end zone, you're looking at that and you're saying, okay, how are they going to respond to this? And I thought they responded pretty well, and they were trailing at halftime, but just sort of the game flow made you feel like they were really in control. The Steelers had a terrible time generating any explosive plays on offense. You take out the fake tush push, which was a well-designed play that worked in a big way. They just couldn't get any chunk plays, and so the Bears were able to play the field position game, knowing that they could get up and down the field and ultimately win the ball game.
Brad, I love the stuff you unearth, and not just on Saturday mornings. I think what was yesterday's nugget that was the best was on ChicagoTribune.com on your 10 thoughts. DeMarco Jackson and Imagn Agbagbaniga combined for 29 tackles. And it was the most two linebackers have combined for, or the first time the Bears have had two linebackers with 14 or more tackles since 2006 when Briggs and Urlacher won the game in the they are who we thought they were game and Dennis Green's rant. What do they do now if they get guys back? Do these guys continue to play because they played at such a high level? And how do you explain the fact that they played at such a high level?
Well, linebackers by nature are going to pile up tackles. Like that's their job. That's where they're at on the field. The way that the Steelers played this game, running the ball, and the high wire horizontal passing game from Mason Rudolph, it sort of put everything there in their laps to make the plays. And I think there's probably going to be a ton they'll see that needs to be corrected. Like you got to have somebody over the top on the fake tush push. There was a walk-in touchdown after that. There's plenty of stuff that's going to need to be corrected. Like these guys aren't going to take anyone's jobs here anytime soon, but it should be noted, and the Bears should celebrate it, that they're able to lose all the guys on the top line of the depth chart, plug some dudes in, and get productive football. And I thought it was really fascinating watching the game unfold because I had a conversation last week with Tyson Bagent. We were talking about running scout team cards in practice, okay? And he sort of steered the conversation to this idea that Ben Johnson and his staff do a remarkable job preparing backups to play, to be ready. And not him specifically, just overall. And as I'm watching the game yesterday, and they've got Jackson and Agbagbaniga at linebacker after Hippolyte had gone out. They got dudes missing in the secondary, and the left tackle situation popped up, and then what do you know, Jonah Jackson spends the second quarter in the locker room. I'm thinking, maybe Bagent's onto something here. Maybe they do have a way of keeping things so competitive for the reserves that they can step up and make plays when called upon.
It was really interesting because I think when you went into that game and with Aaron Rodgers there and walking the field and everything, and Brad, you were watching him and monitoring it. The decision not to play him, do you believe that was gamesmanship all week long? Do you believe they may have decided as they got closer to kickoff that the Bears were kind of in trouble and a little bit less than what you anticipated with all the injuries, and they could take advantage of giving the quarterback another week to get ready? How did you read the way they operated with Rodgers all week long?
Well, I think most teams try to keep their injury and health information kind of close to the vest. I don't think this was any sort of hey, maybe we can get by the Bears with Mason Rudolph and go on from there. Like, they're locked in a dogfight. The Baltimore Ravens, since that meeting with the Bears in October, have indeed gotten off the mat, right? Baltimore's 6-5 now. After the loss, the Steelers are 6-5. They don't have any wiggle room to play with. I think it's a situation where with a fresh fracture of that left wrist just a week ago, probably concern about, if he could brace himself, protect himself out there. So I just think it was, Pittsburgh doing what was best for the player in that situation.
Brad, Montez Sweat had the kind of game that we have been waiting for, and at the same time, that's not even fair to maybe put it in those terms because he's been very good since the bye. And you had a good nugget, and I think he talked yesterday about how it took him some time, even though he's a veteran, to acclimate or reacclimate to a new system, and Dennis Allen came in here with a different scheme. Is it as simple as that? And is this the Montez Sweat that we're going to see the rest of the way, the one we saw yesterday dominate the game?
Yeah, I don't know if it's as simple as that. Certainly, there was a period of acclimation, and to be fair to Sweat, he felt that he was playing well earlier in the season, first 4 or 5 games, when the statistical production wouldn't jump out and tell you that. Like, maybe opportunities weren't there, and that sort of thing, but he didn't feel like he was playing poorly. You could look at it and say, my gosh, since the beginning of 2024, this guy's been in a heck of a slump, especially in consideration of his contract. But he's rolling now, and I talked to Jeremy Garrett, the defensive line coach, about it because, I said, hey, adjusting to the scheme is what you keep telling me, but I've had people tell me for years, when you talk about an easy position for a guy to step in right away and make an impact, whether it's a draft pick or a veteran new to a team, is edge rusher. Like, it's not that complicated. See the quarterback, hit the quarterback. Are there going to be a couple calls you got to know? Yeah, but let's not pretend that the playbook for a defensive end is going to be real complex to learn. And he said, while there was certainly some validity to that, but it's knowing where leverage is on every play, and can I go here or not? Is this the spot right here for me to take my shot? And so Garrett thought Sweat was maybe working through a little bit of that, and he also thinks that he's been putting in more work in terms of off-the-field practice and preparation.
When we talk about what they managed to achieve, how do we project that forward on Friday? I mean, it's a very quick turnaround. You had some injuries out of that game. You're already a team that is very injured, and I think the coach called them devastated by injury. How do you project going into Philadelphia? Vic Fangio is there. The Eagles just lost a bad loss, losing in Dallas. How do you project what happens on Friday? And it's a 7-point spread, as you pointed out from Joe.
Yeah, I think it's a little early in the week to kind of dive in and make a pick, but I'll tell you what, the Eagles, after just falling completely flat and blowing that lead in Dallas, I would imagine that coaching staff will have them on point on a short week because they can't afford to lose any games and stay in the mix for one of these higher seeds, and it's a pivotal game here. The winner of this game would be, in second position in the NFC. There's still so much football to play. Like, it's a little pointless to get in the weeds and talk about seeding and that type of thing, but a huge opportunity. Bears have been on a long stretch of playing teams with backup quarterbacks and journeyman fill-in types. Here's your step up in class, Jalen Hurts. He's got, a $255 million contract. He's a former Super Bowl MVP. The challenge and the bar is raised for the Bears.
I'm curious to see how Ozzie Trapillo grades out at left tackle. I don't know the status of Theo Benedict moving forward, Brad, but the Bears, do they have a nice dilemma on their hands choosing between one or the other, or is there even a choice to be made if Benedict is healthy?
They put Benedict in there, and I think the consistent thing you heard from the Bears is he was making gains. He was improving. So I don't think that Trapillo going out there and playing one game is going to shift what you want to do depth chart wise. Because if that's the case, then maybe Theo hasn't been showing the consistent growth that they've talked about. And I think the one thing we've come to understand with the Bears and the offensive line is they have been pretty transparent and pretty real. And in a lot of cases, you feel like they're sharing publicly pretty much the same thing that they're saying to the players. So based on my experience to this point, hearing everything they've said, I don't think this is a dilemma for him. I think it's Theo's spot when he's back healthy. But I think that Ozzie accounted well for himself. I mean, that's a good pass rushing team that came in. The Bears had some stuff in place to help them out a little bit, but you would expect that for any younger player in that situation. And you didn't get done seeing the game at Soldier Field and say, "Oh man, like that drive just got blown up by the left tackle," or things of that nature. Like, he almost went unnoticed. And in a lot of ways, I think that's a good day for an offensive lineman, right?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
I'm curious, when we look at the Bears and the quarterbacks they've played, and you've gone over all this, how big a step in class is it going against Jalen Hurts? And do you think that that this will be a very difficult game from the perspective of trying to stop their running game more than their passing game?
Yeah, I think if the Eagles want to commit to the running game, it could be a very steep challenge for the Bears. Like, I think Saquon Barkley only had 22, 25 yards rushing yesterday in Dallas. Something has been amiss with that offense in Philadelphia pretty much all season.
Yeah.
Like, you don't go more than 2-3 weeks without hearing about how many different people are upset. And at the beginning of the year, it was this private meeting with these 2 or 3 guys, and it's really, I think, a credit to Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman that they kind of keep the thing on the tracks with as much noise as you hear. The defense under Fangio has been fantastic, but yeah, they got a heck of a challenge with Hurts, with Barkley. A.J. Brown has had 2 games in his career against the Bears, and they were both big. Last meeting was at Soldier Field. I think he went for about $160, guys, and they were targeting him all day long. That was a different defense, many different players involved. but he's super capable. I'm a little curious about the status of Lane Johnson, the right tackle, who's been out with an ankle injury. I don't believe Philadelphia put him on IR. His status would be important to keep an eye on because that's one of the very elite. Him and Penei Sewell are at the top of the class in terms of right tackles in the National Football League.
All right, Brad, before I let you go, I'll let you explain what you were doing on a Saturday morning, surfing the web and finding the Bears placing Tremaine Edmunds on injured reserve before anybody else found it, 5 hours before they were comfortable announcing it, and the blowback, if you got any, about that report Saturday morning. Nice job, by the way.
Yeah, it's great work.
They didn't put him on IR. They put him on IR on their media website, and I'm assuming they did that. Well, I don't know when they did it sometime before I stumbled across it at like 9:45 Saturday morning when I was fixing to gather some statistics in terms of playing time with games lost to some guys with injuries, and I was just was going to start putting some numbers together, and so it's just kind of scrolling across the page, and I saw it, and I said, wait a minute. Tremaine Edmunds, does that say injured reserve? And so I refreshed the page. I'm like, this probably isn't right. I refreshed the page, and he was still there, so I snapped a little picture of it. And, Ben Johnson said yesterday, hopefully they will have him back before the end of the regular season, and that's probably going to be a narrow window, though, right?
Right.
With 3 more games to miss, and then you talk about trying to get them ramped up. Maybe they'll have some good news in Lake Forest later this week regarding not only Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon and a potential return to the 53 in action for them, but TJ Edwards, you would hope, would be close to a return as well.
Could Braxton Jones come back, Brad, or they haven't started the clock on him at all, right?
They could start the clock on him. I don't know if this is your week to start the clock because there's going to be one practice this week. It'll be on Wednesday.
Right.
I'm sure it'll be a little bit on the lighter side. They will have a walkthrough today, though, and a walkthrough on Tuesday as they get ready for a big trip to Philadelphia.
And if they do, will you let us know 5 hours before the Bears do?
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay.
I'll try.
Good
You're
stuff,
the
Brad.
best. Thanks, Brad.
Have a great day, guys.